What's up, sports fans? This is the NCAA College Sports Channel. It is time to give you my official takeaways from week number 9 of the 2025 college football season. And I'll be honest, week 9, kind of a quiet weekend in terms of upsets. There was not a lot of big games this weekend, but there were a lot of close games that almost turned out to be upsets. And I gotta tell you, this would have been another chaotic weekend if we did see those big upsets play out. I will talk about those games that almost really came an upset here in this takeaways video. But we're looking at, the most important takeaways here from week 9, the most important takeaways that I saw here from this past weekend. And we are now heading into week 10. We got 4 regular season weeks left to go. And then on November 4th, we got the first ever college football playoff top 25 rankings. So yeah, things are really going to be starting to heat up here momentarily soon as we almost head into the month of November. It starts on a Saturday. I mean, obviously you got games on Friday in the final day of October, but still, we're heading into the month of November now with that full Saturday of slate of games. So let's jump right into these takeaways, and we'll start here with takeaway number 1, and that's going to come in the SEC. So all of these teams in the SEC, they all have a shot to make the college football playoff. And I'm not just talking about all of these SEC teams. I'm not saying that they're going to all make it in, but they all have a shot to make the college football playoff. You're talking about 9 SEC teams. I mean, you look at all these team logos here on the screen. These are all teams that can make the playoff, but some of them will be left out. They'll probably lose maybe a third game, maybe a second game, and then they probably get left out because they just don't have a better resume. And also head-to-head will matter. But you look at these 9 teams: Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, and Tennessee. These 9 teams, they either are undefeated, they have 1 loss, or even 2 losses in conference play. Alabama and Texas A&M both don't have any losses in the SEC, although we saw Alabama had, to come back from behind against South Carolina. That would have definitely, really shake things up in the SEC. Texas A&M, though, they blew out LSU, blew out them in the second half of that game. This is a really dangerous Texas A&M team. Marcel Reed is a great athlete, and Texas A&M around him, they got athletes all over the place. So Texas A&M might be the best team in the SEC just because they're undefeated, but having to go on the road to play LSU at nighttime in Death Valley, it's always very tough to do that. But LSU, I think we kind of now realize that they're just not a really good team at all, and they don't have a great shot to make the playoff. Georgia has still got a chance to make it to the SEC championship. If they win the rest of their SEC games, I think they're automatically in. They got Georgia Tech at the end of the year, which is looking like a pretty good matchup in rivalry weekend. I think even if they lose that game, they're still going to make the college football playoff nonetheless. Vanderbilt, of course, beating Missouri. That was a huge win in a game that was so close of a game. That was a battle between 2 really good, even teams. Same thing with Ole Miss and Oklahoma. That was also a huge win for Ole Miss. Texas had to beat Mississippi State in overtime. Backup quarterback came in after Arch Manning went down with the injury. So we'll see what the status of him going the rest of the way is. I feel like the quarterback that came in there and threw the football for Texas to get the lead, I think, Texas might be a little bit better with him, but it's still kind of early for that quarterback to kind of, come in there and kind of, just make a name for himself. Missouri, though, Bo Birbila goes down with the injury. That's definitely going to be tough here for Missouri to probably win out and make the playoff if he's injured, and it looks like a season-ending injury just because of how he went down. And then Tennessee, we saw them take care of business against Kentucky. So all these teams, 9 teams, you're talking about 9 teams that all have a shot to make the college football playoff. I think Alabama and Texas A&M, they're probably in great shape. Texas A&M, they got to play Missouri on the road. I think they actually get a bye week this upcoming weekend before playing that game, so that does give them time to rest. Alabama, the rest of the schedule for them, they got Oklahoma and LSU both at home. If they win those games, I think they're automatically in. They do got a trap game against Auburn on the road at Jordan-Hare at the end of the year, but I think Alabama might be actually favored in that game. It will be tough, but Alabama, I think, definitely should be the better team. Then you got Georgia. They still got to play Texas. They got Georgia Tech at the end of the year, but I think Georgia, will be just fine. Vanderbilt, they got Tennessee on the road. I'm not sure about the rest of their other games, but Vanderbilt's got a pretty good shot. and probably a good path. Ole Miss, their schedule sets up pretty well the rest of the way. I mean, Oklahoma's got a pretty tough schedule. If they win out, then they probably will get in as a 10-2 team. But they got Tennessee and Alabama both on the road, so those are going to be really tricky games there for Oklahoma. Texas, that, like I said, has to still play Georgia. Missouri, they have a pretty easy schedule that sets up the rest of the way. They got Texas A&M, though, coming up. If they lose that game, then I think they're definitely out. But if they win, I think it definitely shakes things up in the SEC, and Missouri still probably has a shot to make the playoff. Tennessee, the schedule sets up kind of pretty well for them the rest of the way as well. They got a home game against Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, and then they got Florida on the road. That could be a little bit of a trap game, but all these 9 SEC teams, they all 9 of them have a good shot to make the college football playoff because of the parity in the SEC this year. Again, Alabama and Texas A&M are at the top because they haven't lost a conference game, but the rest of these teams, some of them are probably going to win out and get in as an at-large team, while some of them probably get left out, and some of them probably lose like a second or third game. So yeah, that's takeaway number 1. All of these SEC teams have a shot to make the college football playoff. Let's go to takeaway number 2 now. And that's in the ACC. Georgia Tech and Virginia have separated themselves, but for how long? So when I say for how long, I'm talking about they haven't fully separated themselves, but they have separated themselves for now. We saw Georgia Tech take care of business against Syracuse. That was not even a close game whatsoever. Georgia Tech looks like the most consistent team, probably in all of college football this year, maybe besides Indiana. I mean, Georgia Tech is playing like a top 10 team, even though they haven't really beaten anyone specifically that great this year. I mean, obviously they beat Clemson, but Clemson doesn't look like they're a pretty good team. And then obviously they beat Wake Forest. That's probably their best win of the year, and Wake Forest just beat SMU. So yeah, that definitely kind of, separated, Virginia and Georgia Tech from the rest of the teams in the ACC, but for how long? We saw Virginia had to go to overtime against North Carolina. I still question about Bill Belichick going for a 2-point conversion. I mean, Virginia was pretty lucky to win this game. Let's be honest, they were on the road. It wasn't that tough of a place to play, because the crowd is not really fired up at, North Carolina because of how, North Carolina's played this year. And yeah, Virginia probably should have won that game a little bit bigger, but it kind of goes to show you that Virginia's kind of not up there with the talented teams. I mean, North Carolina's not a very talented team, but Virginia still has a long way to go. Now, Georgia Tech and Virginia, they have separated themselves at the top of the standings, but again, for how long is the question. I think Virginia and Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech has a schedule that sets up so well the rest of the way, but so does Virginia. But I feel like after Virginia's performance against North Carolina, you got to wonder if they'll probably slip up somewhere. That's definitely going to be the major concern going the rest of the way here for the Cavaliers. Georgia Tech, they have Georgia at the end of the year, but that game is in Atlanta, so I think Georgia Tech definitely has a pretty good shot to win that game. Even if they lose that game, go unbeaten in conference play, Georgia Tech, I think, should automatically make it to the college football playoff. And then also, if they win their conference championship, I mean, they just have to win it. That's all they have to do. So, yeah, Georgia Tech and Virginia, they have separated themselves, but for how long will be the question. I think these two teams will probably slip up somewhere, maybe on the ACC schedule, but I feel like for Virginia, it's probably more likely for them instead of Georgia Tech, because Georgia Tech, with Haynes King at quarterback, this is a very dangerous team in the ACC. So that's takeaway number 2. Moving on to takeaway number 3. We go to the Group of 5. Let's talk about the Group of 5 conference now. The American Conference just got interesting. So I put the standings up here for like the 5 teams that all have a shot to make the college football playoff from the American Conference. So you got Navy, Tulane, Memphis, North Texas, and South Florida. These 5 teams all have a pretty good shot to make the college football playoff at the Group of 5, team level. Navy is still undefeated. They're 7-0, 5-0 in conference play. Navy really hasn't played anybody that tough this year, though, so they probably wouldn't have enough of a resume to get in to the college football playoff. Even if they were to win the American Championship, I just don't know if I see Navy getting in because of that resume. Tulane has still got a pretty good resume. The one loss, of course, coming to Ole Miss, which is looking like their best loss of the season. And they haven't lost a conference game yet, and I didn't even realize that these 2 teams were still unbeaten. And like I said, I don't really study Group of 5 teams that much. So Navy and Tulane are still both unbeaten. Memphis, North Texas, and South Florida, each with one loss. And how about the Memphis and South Florida game yesterday? That definitely kind of shook things up here in the American. What a comeback by Memphis, down by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and then they come back and scored like 17 or 17 unanswered points in that game. So yeah, Memphis and South Florida, that was a pretty good game there. I feel like South Florida definitely was the better team, but Memphis just kept fighting in that game. So that really kind of did shake things up here for South Florida. They got a second loss now. They got a loss to Memphis, and they also got a loss to Miami, who is a top 5 team in the Power 4 level. And North Texas, South Florida beat them head-to-head. I mean, I guess the record and everything, they kept them a head-to-head there. But, North Texas shouldn't be ahead of South Florida because of that head-to-head. So, yeah, I think South Florida probably should be in that 4th place spot instead of North Texas. But again, Navy, I don't know if I see them getting in. I feel like if Navy wins the American, they go undefeated and go 12-0. I just don't see an American team now getting in the college football playoff. Now for Tulane, if they win the American, are they going to sneak in there to the playoff? I think that's pretty likely because Tulane does have a pretty good case for an argument. Same thing for Memphis. South Florida could still probably win out and make it to the American Championship. I think it's going to be pretty tough for them. So, yeah, the American Conference just got a little bit interesting just based off of what happened in the South Florida and Memphis game. Navy, again, still unbeaten, but I don't know if they have a great enough resume to get in. And like I said, if Navy wins out and if they win the American Championship, I just don't know if the resume would be good enough. And then Tulane, I wouldn't be surprised if they got in. Same thing with Memphis. I don't know if North Texas could probably get in, for that matter, because of the head-to-head over South Florida. And South Florida, definitely can still have a pretty good shot. So that's takeaway number 3. Which American Conference team is going to make the college football playoff if this thing just gets more interesting? But we'll find out. That's takeaway number 3. Takeaway number 4 now. Will BYU and Cincinnati win out or slip up before playing? Now, when I say before playing, these two teams will meet each other on November the 22nd. That's a game that kind of does decide at the top of the Big 12, but I feel like BYU and Cincinnati are going to slip up somewhere. You look at Cincinnati, they took care of business, though, against Baylor. Baylor kept it close there for a while until Cincinnati kind of, pulled away. Now, BYU went on the road at Iowa State. I was, doubting BYU again, but BYU, again, just continues to prove me wrong. It seems like when I do pick BYU to lose a game, they just prove me wrong, and they've done that now the last couple of weeks. They beat Utah, and then they went on the road here to beat Iowa State. So BYU looks like a pretty good football team. This team has not taken a step back after what they did last year, and they look like the front runner in the Big 12 because they haven't lost a game. But Cincinnati hasn't lost a conference game. They have one loss to a non-conference team in Nebraska. But yeah, these two teams are at the top of the Big 12. We saw Houston beat Arizona State on the road. That game was not even super close if you watch the entire game. Yeah, it was the final score was 24-16, but Arizona State, they couldn't really just hang with Houston in that game. The Cougars brought their A game. Their defense played pretty well. So you kind of had to start talking about Houston in this conversation. So if BYU or Cincinnati slip up, I think we could probably see Houston have a pretty good shot to make the Big 12 championship. I feel like, at the end of the year, I don't think two teams from the Big 12 will make it into the college football playoff. I mean, there's really too much parity in this conference to have two teams in the playoff. But, BYU and Cincinnati, if they both win out before playing each other, then I think this will definitely decide who will be that front runner in the Big 12 and have a great shot to make the playoff the rest of the way. So, yeah, BYU and Cincinnati, they don't play each other until November 22nd. These two teams did take care of business yesterday. Again, BYU was down at the half, but they definitely did play better in the second half. Iowa State, just too many mistakes in the second half just cost them and some turnovers. Cincinnati, again, had a pretty tough test against Baylor for a little bit, and then Cincinnati did pull away. So I feel like these teams will slip up, though, before playing against each other. I feel like, just with the parity in the Big 12, I mean, again, I keep doubting BYU, but they just continue to prove me wrong. Cincinnati, though, is a pretty good football team, so we'll see if they keep winning, but that's takeaway number 4. And then we go to the final takeaway. Really not a big takeaway because I didn't have any big takeaways from the Big 10 yesterday. All I know is that Indiana took care of business against UCLA, and then I also saw that Oregon kind of had a tough first first half against Wisconsin, but they ended up just doing enough. I mean, a win's a win nonetheless, and that was a pretty good Wisconsin defense. Now, I probably did see a new quarterback in there, so I think Dante Moore maybe went down with some kind of injury. I had to go back and look at that, but it's win or go home at this point because we are now heading into November. I mean, the college football playoff top 25 rankings, they do come out, of course, November the 4th. After week 10 of the season, we got 4 weeks of regular season football left to go. This season has really flown by, and we've seen a lot of big upsets this year, and I feel like going into November, we could have a lot more big upsets that play out. It's just win or go home at this point. It's win or go home for a lot of these teams. Some teams with like maybe 3 losses, maybe 2 losses, they have to win out in order to make the college football playoff, and then, if some of these teams have 3 losses or like 4 losses, then they're probably not going to be in. So, yeah, it's win or go home at this point, so not really a big takeaway. But again, I just did touch a little bit on the Big Ten. Ohio State did not play this past weekend. They did not play yesterday. Indiana took care of business against UCLA. Oregon had a, tough game against, Wisconsin. They win it 21-7. And then how about Illinois and Washington? Washington looks like a pretty good team. Washington beat Illinois 42-25. And then we saw, of course, Michigan take care of business against Michigan State. So, yeah, not a ton of things happening in the Big Ten. As always, the Big Ten has just been the quietest conference ever, and it just seems like you got your top 3 teams in Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon. But we'll see what happens here down the stretch in the Big Ten. But that is my final takeaway. It's win or go home at this point. 4 regular season weeks ahead of us, and also the first ever college football playoff rankings coming out after, not this week, but after this weekend in week number 10. That's coming out November the 4th, next Tuesday, and I'm not sure what the time is for it, but either way, let's see what happens here down the stretch. That is my official takeaways here from week number 9. Give me your takeaways down in the comments below, and what was a pretty quiet week 9 in my opinion. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on the NCAA College Sports YouTube channel.